Welcome back to Sister Like Quick Bible Study. Yes, I'm back for another Bible study. We're starting on Genesis chapter 21. I hope everyone is well out there, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe so you will be notified of my next video, and to support this channel, subscribe and like. When you subscribe, that helps to build the channel and more people can see it. Also like. We're going to go ahead and get started where we left off, Genesis chapter 21. Go ahead and get your Bibles out. Yes, my soul tribe, get your Bibles out. If you don't have a Bible, that's okay. I'm going to read it and give you my interpretations. And like I said before, I have the gift of vision. I am a prophetess. It runs in my family. Prophetess and the gift of vision. And I will pause to interpret the Bible sometimes, and I will also give my interpretations and comments along the way. Genesis chapter 21. And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. Yes, see, in the previous chapters, Abraham, he didn't believe that the Lord could bless Sarah with a baby because Sarah was old. But the Lord prophesied and told Abraham that he will give Sarah a child of their own. And this is what he's talking about right here in verse 2. Chapter 21, verse 3. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Okay, so it's 8 days for the circumcision. That was part of our homework, the word circumcision or circumcised. Come to find out, circumcision or circumcised means to cut around. To cut around, like to cut in a circle, to cut around. Circumcision means to cut around the foreskin. Okay, but I hope you did that homework. Yeah, but before, it had said 5 days. Had to go back and look again at the past video that I did about circumcision. Let me see if I can find that again. One moment. Alright, I'm back. Okay, no, I was wrong. It didn't say 5 days. It said 8 days, so that's right. The Bible says circumcision for babies should be at 8 days old. 8 days old. Yeah, I don't know where I get 5 days from, but yeah. Genesis chapter 17, verse 12 says, and he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you. So just like it says right here about Isaac circumcising his baby at 8 days old, that's correct. 8 days old. I'll write that down for circumcision. That was part of the homework. $8 days old for babies. That's part of the covenant. The covenant means to pledge. It's a binding agreement. When you circumcise a baby, that's a binding agreement with God that started with Abraham. It started with Abraham and his generations. Matter of fact, that his name was Abram. It started with Abram. The Lord changed his name to Abraham. So I'm correct. Yeah. Yeah, chapter 17, verse 12 is when it speaks about 8 days old, the baby shall be circumcised. Chapter 17, verse 7 speaks about the covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee generations. So the covenant and the circumcision began with Abram's. And you can go back and look at the past videos of chapter 17. I believe that was the last video I did when I spoke about it. The last one or the one before then. But if you didn't see it already, go ahead and catch up with the past Bible studies. I'm going to start numbering the chapters on the Bible study so we can see which chapters we already read. But yeah, like I said, chapter 17 is when it speaks about the covenant and circumcision. And we did do that Bible study already. Yeah, sometimes I go back just to verify what was said. Yeah, and Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Isaac circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Yeah, God commanded him to circumcise his son at 8 days as part of the covenant between him and his generations from now on with God. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. And Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. And she said, who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given child suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned, meaning weaned from the breast. That's why Sarah said, she said, who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given children suck? She was surprised she could still breastfeed at her age. She was like 90-something years old when she had Isaac. And so it is possible for a woman to have a child up to 90 years old, because Sarah did it. But in the ancient days, back then they were very healthy. They were very healthy. Their body wasn't as sick as nowadays. Nowadays, people's bodies don't seem as strong because we don't have the natural foods and stuff that, and from the Mother Earth, and the natural medicines and things, and natural foods that makes our body and our uterus strong, and our bodies live long like before, like we do now. Yeah, back in the ancient days, they ate more vegetables. They ate more natural things, and they had they called them witch doctors, but they had a different name back then. I'm sure they had other names, but the white men called them witch doctors. But really, they were medicine doctors. They knew how to use the regular medicine, herbs, and the vegetables that grew in Africa. They used that to eat, and they used that for medicine. So that's why it was possible. It was a miracle that the Lord gave Sarah a baby at 90 years old. She didn't believe it, but she laughed. That's why she said she laughed that everyone laughed with her. Yeah, she was so happy. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. Verse 9, and Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, which she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. And God said unto Abraham, let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad, and because of thy bondwoman, in all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. And also of the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and took bread and a bottle of water, and gave it unto Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, and the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. Okay, so I'm interpreting from that the Lord told it said, and God said unto Abram, let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the land. And he said, and all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice. So the Lord told Abram, listen to your wife. The wife told him to shoo away the handmaiden and the son that Abram gave to the handmaiden, or made with the handmaiden, because Sarah wanted Isaac to be, what did it say? Because Sarah wanted Abraham, son Isaac, to be the heir. Excuse me, I got tongue tied. He wanted Isaac to be the heir instead of the handmaiden's son. But the Lord said he would still bless the handmaiden's son still, and he would be the bearer of mighty nations. But Isaac will carry on Abraham's name. The Lord told Isaac to honor his wife's wishes, and his wife wished for the handmaid and her son to leave because she was happy she finally had her husband's son herself. And if you watch the last Bible study, Sarah and Abraham couldn't have a baby before, but the Lord told Abraham that he will have a baby with his wife Sarah, and he blessed them with a baby. So that's why the Lord said, listen to your wife. He said, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. He was right. He said he wanted his seed to be named after Isaac. He wanted Isaac to be the heir of his seed, and not the child born out of wedlock. The handmaiden child that he had his birth with, the handmaiden, she was born out of wedlock. She wasn't Isaac's wife. She was the handmaiden. And the Lord let that happen for whatever reason. You can go back and see why he let that happen. But I'm interpreting it as the Lord told him to listen to his wife, because they had their own covenant as husband and wife. They had their own covenant. They had their own bond and agreement also as husband and wife. Just like circumcision is a bond and a covenant, marriage is a bond and a covenant too with God as husband and wife. So that's why I'm interpreting that he told him, he said, hearken unto her voice, meaning his wife's voice, and Isaac shall be the heir of his seed. Meaning his last name will be carried down from Isaac's seed, not from the maid's seed. So he sent the maid out. And Abraham, I'm going to read it again, verse 14. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and took bread and a bottle of water and gave it unto Hagar. Hagar was the handmaiden, the maid. Put it in on her shoulder and the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And the water was sent in the bottle, and she cast the child under one of the shrubs. And she went and sat her down over against him, a good way off, as it were a bow shot. For she said, let not see the death of the child. And she sat over against him and lifted up her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the lad. And the angel of God called Hagar out of heaven, and said unto her, What aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in thine hand, for I will make him a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the bottle with water, and gave the lad drink. And God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness, and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Pekol, the chief captain of his host, spake unto Abraham, saying, God is with thee in all that thou doest. And therefore swear unto me here by God that thou wilt not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my son's son, but according to the kindness that I have done unto thee, thou shalt do unto me, and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of well water. So Abimelech is the name of the let me see. Okay, one more. Abimelech, you can look into the previous chapters for who Abimelech was. Okay, let me see. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of well water, which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. And Abimelech said, I wot not who have done this thing, neither didst thou me, neither yet heard I of it, but today. And Abraham took sheep and oxen, and gave them unto Abimelech, and both of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. Okay, here's a footnote. Sometimes I will read the footnotes. Here's a footnote about Hagar and Ishmael. Okay, yeah, the son's name was Ishmael. I was trying to figure out what the son's name that was born out of wedlock by Hagar and Abram. Hagar and Ishmael. Abraham cast out Hagar and Ishmael according to the code of Hammurabi. Many features of Abraham's treatment of Hagar are in accord with the code of Hammurabi. Okay, so this is talking about ancient Africa. This is a footnote. Hammurabi, the great black African king of Babylon, from 1792 to 1750 before Christ, formulated the code of Hammurabi, the law in the region from which Abraham came. Many of the customs cited in the book of Genesis show that Abraham was familiar with the code of Hammurabi. The code covered such matters as false accusation, witchcraft, military service, land and business regulation, wages, trade, loans, and debts. The main principle of the code was that the strong should not injure the weak. All the nations of the Northeast Africa, known as the Middle East today, were influenced by the code. Okay, that's the first time I learned that, see? And see, the Bible's not talking about Hammurabi. That's because, like I said, some parts of the Bible, they don't want to say too much about the African culture, even though the Bible is written from African people and African culture. But you got to remember, the King James Version is from the white man's version, written down from the ancient scrolls and hieroglyphs on the pyramids. That's where the stories in the Bibles came from. So they left some in. They left some of the history in from the Bible before Christ's days, and they took some out. But that's why I said you have to interpret. It depends on how you interpret it. Okay, Genesis chapter 21, verse 29. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What mean these 7 ewe lambs which thou hast set by themselves? And he said, For these 7 ewe lambs shalt thou take of my hand, and they may be a witness unto me that I have digged this well. Wherefore he called that place Beersheba, because there they swear both of them. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech rose up and Pekal, the chief captain of his host, and they returned into the land of the Philistines. Nowadays, the land of Philistines is called Palestine. And it's a shame now that going on now, Israel is really going hard against the people of Palestine right now. Right now, it's a war starting up again in Israel and Palestine. And that's terrible. Please pray for the people of Palestine, because they are poor people. They don't have the weapons to fight against the mighty nation of Israel. Okay, verse 33. Also, the Palestines, just like it says in the Bible, Palestine, they are the descendants of the original people of Philistine. That's why the Israelis are so against them, because they are descendants of African people. The Palestinians are like the descendants of African people that were mixed down over the generations, but they still are the descendants of the African people. And the Jews, they don't like that. The Jews, some of the white Jews are very envious of them because of the bloodline, because they have more of the African bloodline than some of them white Jews. The original Jews were African. Okay, if you don't know, check out the link that I have in other videos about ancient Egypt. Okay, verse 33. And Abram planted a grove in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned in the Philistines' land many days. The Philistines' land meaning Palestine. Chapter 22. And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham, and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine own son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. So that's where the name Moriah comes from. But in the Bible, they spell it Moriah, Moriah. Yeah, there's many names. Many names people have that people don't even realize that those names are sacred names, whether they're in the Bible or not. They're sacred. Just like the name Latanya is sacred. It has another different meanings, but you wouldn't know if you unless you research the name of what the name means. It means it means natural, the natural mother, Mother Nature. Okay, getting back to the Genesis chapter 22, verse 3. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place of God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I, the lad, will go yonder and worship, and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. And they came to the place which God had told him of, and Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. He said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him, for now I know thou fearest God. See if thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and behold behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered him up for burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah-Jireh, as it is said to this day, In the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. Ain't that something? Jehovah-Jireh, he called the land Jehovah-Jireh. Now a lot of people say Jehovah-Jireh means money. So I don't know why they say Jehovah-Jireh means money, like God, like they're asking God for money. But I guess because they say it's a place for burnt offering. That's where he gave the burnt offering at. So I guess they can say Jireh is like an offering. But it's also strange about the Abraham about to sacrifice or offering his son. And let me go back and see about this one moment. Okay, so the God did tell him to offer him as a burnt offering. That's what chapter 22 verse 2 says. Verse 2 is saying that that the Lord told him, he said, Take now thy son, thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering, which one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. See? So he wanted to see how much Abraham was loyal to him. He tested him. He didn't really want him to do that. He tested him. And when he saw that he was willing to give up his only beloved son for God, he stopped him, because he didn't really want him to kill his son. He just wanted to see how loyal Abraham would be to him. So he stopped him, and he miraculously put a ram in the bush. Before, they didn't see no ram. Just like Isaac said, Isaac knew what the offerings was when he saw the altar in the wood burning. Isaac was like, well, where's the lamb? There's nothing to offer. But then Isaac was bound up by his father and put on the altar. He was about to burn his son and alter him to God. And just imagine how poor Isaac felt. But thank the Lord stopped him because he was just testing him. It's a terrible way to test him, but sometimes the Lord sends us through terrible tests. Tests that we would never imagine, tests that we don't even want to go through. Awful test. That was very awful. That was an awful test. But he passed it, and the Lord saved him from any pain, and he saved his son from pain. He just wanted to see how far he would go to obey God. That was a serious, awful test. But he passed it, and the Lord said that he would name that place. Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah Jireh. That's the place where he made his first burnt offering of the ram instead of his son. And that's something. And by the way, the ram is symbolic for the astrology sign Aries. Yeah, Aries is symbolic for the ram. Okay, now let's see. 15. And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of the heaven the second time, and said, By myself have I sworn, saith the Lord. For because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, that in blessing I will bless thee. Yeah, he said because he didn't withhold his son, and he was obeying what the Lord was telling him to do, even though it was just a test. The Lord is saying in verse 17, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. Meaning that thy seed got control over the gate. Meaning that he got control over the gate. He won't let them in. He won't even let the enemies in. Thy seed got control over the gate. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. That's great, okay? So Abraham returned unto his young man, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. And it came to pass after these things that it was told Abraham, saying, Behold, Malchi shall have also borne children unto thy brother Nahor, Huz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Chemiel, the father of Aram, and Shazad, and Hazor, and Pildash, and Jidlap, and Bethuel. And Bethuel begat Rebekah. These 8 Malchi did bear to Nahor, Abraham's brother. Okay, so they're saying that Michal, that's the woman, she bare 8 children to Nahor, one of Abraham's brothers. And his concubine, whose name was Ramah, she bare also Tabah, Gaham, Tahash, and Makkah. So in those days they had, I guess it was alright, they had a concubine. And we can't say if it was alright or not, but that's just saying that's what happened. So Nahor, he had his wife named Malchi, and he also had a concubine. The concubine was like a woman on the side. and her name was Umar, and she bore 3 children, Tabah, Gaham, and Tahash. Okay, 4 children, Tabah, Gaham, Tahash, and Makkah. Okay, excuse the pronunciations. These are ancient names and words, so I have to get used to pronouncing them. I might get tongue-tied a little bit. Chapter 23. And Sarah was 107 and 20 years old. 107 and 20 years old. So that's 170. Let me see, 107 and 20 years old. Okay, 100. She was 100. Let me see, 107. 107 and 20 years old. So that sounds like 170, 1720. Let me write that down. I'm getting confused. 1720. Okay, I'm interpreting that to mean 1,720. So Sarah was 1,720 years old. These were the years of the life of Sarah. So I'm interpreting it to mean that Sarah lived to be 1,720 years old. And Sarah died in Kirjath Arba. And that's something. So she had her son Isaac at 90 years old. And she lived to be 1,720. That's my interpretation, because it's saying she's 107 and 20 years. So, that when you say it like that, it don't make sense. But when you write it down, 107 and 20 years, it looks like 1,720. Okay, verse 2. And Sarah died in Kirjath Arba. The same is Hebron in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And Abraham stood up from before his dead and spake unto the sons of Heth, saying, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you. Give me a possession of a burying place with you, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. So he mourned her. He was sad that she died, but he wanted a place to bury her. That's how I'm interpreting that. So he's spoken to the sons of Heth, asking them, because he was in their land. He said, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you. Give me a possession of a burying place with you, that I may bury my dead out of sight. He asked for some land there to bury his people. He said, that I may bury my dead out of sight. Chapter 23, verse 5. And the children of Heth answered Abraham, saying unto him, Hear us, my Lord, thou art a mighty prince among us. In the choice of our sepulchres, bury thy dead. None of us shall withhold from thee his sepulchre, that thou mayest bury thy dead. And Abraham stood up and bowed himself to the people of the land, even to the children of Heth. And he communed with them, saying, If it be your mind that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hear me, and entreat for me to Ephron the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he hath, which is in the end of his field. For as much money as it is worth, he shall give it me for a possession of a burying place among you. And Ephron dwelt among the children of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite, answered Abraham in the audience of the children of Heth, even of all that went in the gate of his city, saying, Nay, my Lord, hear me. The field give I thee, and the cave that is therein I give it thee. In thy presence of the sons of my people give I it thee. Bury thy dead. So they gave him the land to bury their dead. They honored Abraham. And these were the people in this new land. He asked for the cave of Machpelah. Okay. And Abraham bowed down himself before the people of the land. And he spoke unto Ephraim, in the audience of the people of the land, saying, But if thou wilt give it thee, but if thou wilt give thee, I pray thee, hear me. I will give thee money for the field. Take it of me, and I will bury my dead there. And Ephraim answered Abraham, saying unto him, My Lord, hearken unto me. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. What is thou betwixt me and thee? Bury therefore thy dead. And Abraham hearkened unto Ephraim. And Abraham weighed to Ephraim the silver, which he had named in the audience of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, current money with the merchant. And the field of Ephraim, which was in Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field, and the cave which was therein. And all the trees that were in the field, that were in all the borders around about, were made sure unto Abraham for a possession in the presence of the children of Heth, before all that went in the gate of his city. And after this Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah, before Mamre, the same is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And the field and the cave that is therein were made sure unto Abraham for a possession of a burying place by the sons of Heth. Wonderful. So they gave him some land in Canaan to bury his family, to bury his deceased wife, and the rest of his descendants if necessary there. And Abraham paid money. That was money. Now remember, some of these names of things is the English name. Back then they didn't really speak English. But see, it's written in English, the Shakespearean English, so that we can interpret it from the English language. But back then it was written in, ancient Africa, they had the different language. Just for your information. All right, we're going to end the Bible study right here. And we'll begin Genesis chapter 24 to the next Bible study. Okay, I'm cutting it short tonight because I wasn't feeling so good this weekend. That's why it took me a while to get back started. The devil's busy out there. Sometimes stress can hurt your body, and not that I was stressed, but just just being busy, because I do have arthritis in my spine. Just being busy kind of tense my neck up, and then also the stress about what's going on in the world. About the cop cities that they're trying to make against the African American communities. The cop cities that they try to use the public's money for, to build a cop city to fight against the people. And just so you know, cop city, if they make a military, if they make the cops out of military. The cops already got military weapons. Now, if they make Cop City, that's where they want to train the cops to use the military weapons, like tanks and bombs. If you don't know, look up Cop City in Atlanta, Georgia. That's why they had a big riot earlier this month in Atlanta, Georgia, because they protested the Cop City. They're trying to build the Cop City in the forest, and the poor forest defender was shot dead. He was shot dead, and he was just protesting to defend the forest. They wanted the right to have the right to walk in the forest if they want to. But the government want to take up that land and don't even want the public to walk in the forest. They want to take up that land to make a big, huge facility for cops around America to be trained in military weapons. So that was a big thing happened this month, and that's something to be already in January 2023. And then also the killing of Tyree Nichols that happened in Memphis, Tennessee. So it just took a little while. It's a heavy spirit going on, but that's the devil trying to hold us down. That the devil trying to eat away at your heart. But let not your heart be heavy. Sister Like Quick is telling my people, let not your heart be heavy. That's what they wanted. They want our heart to be heavy. But don't let your heart be too heavy, because if you let it be too heavy, you won't make it into the gates of heaven, because your heart will be weighed. So that's why you have to breathe, let all the stress out. Sometime if you need a break, that's okay. Take a break. And you come back and praise the Lord every day. You pray every day. And I pray that the Lord bless Tyree Nichols' soul. And Hagati, I can't remember his name right now. Whatever the poor man's name, I think it's Hagati or something like that. The poor man that was killed in the forest defender. Bless his soul too. If you want, just go ahead and look it up about Cop City and how they killed that man. They claimed the man had a gun and shot at the cop. I don't believe none of that. But because that man, he just looked innocent. He was defending the forest, and that's how that big protest came out. The devil is busy. That's why the people's trying to fight against the devil in protest. But the best way we can fight against the devil is to pray. If you need to protest, go ahead and protest too. We have the right to protest. Protest against Cop City and protest against police brutality. And I may put a link in this Bible study about Cop City and Tyree Nichols for those that don't know about what's going on in the world, in America. But the devil is busy. The devil's trying to build up their army against the people of God, against the descendants of Abraham. They're trying to build up another war against the descendants of Abraham by using military weapons. But we can stop there. We're hoping and praying that the Georgia don't allow that Cop City to be built, because that's one of the first places. They also said in Philadelphia they was going to start a Cop City there too. Okay, our next Bible study will be Genesis chapter 24. Please like and subscribe. Thank you. Come back again. Lord bless you.